Hey everyone, this is Christian Heimel, host of Press Row. Thanks so much for listening to the following broadcast, courtesy of Public House Media.
This is Ryan Pierce, host of Completely Serious here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Completely Serious, where we talk about sports and have fun with great guests. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Completely Serious. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Today's verse of the day comes from Psalm 94:19. When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy. Good morning. Welcome to the Verse of the Day podcast presented by Public House Media. I'm your host, Baxter Colburn. Thanks for being here today as we get ready for another exciting edition of Verse of the Day. I apologize for those that were looking for this show to come out the previous day, but life gets in the way sometimes, so giving you still the verse for yesterday for you to be able to consume. Just the release date ended up being just a little bit later than we thought it was going to be. But either way, here we are. We're excited to be a part of your morning or your afternoon or your evening or wherever it is that you might be consuming this show. Quick reminder, we're on Apple Podcasts. If you haven't gone and subscribed to the show already, if you haven't left us a review, please do so. We'd be very grateful for you to do that. If you want to submit a verse of the day, head over to Verse of the Day by Public House Media on Facebook, or head over to Verse Podcast on Instagram. Anxiety is probably one of the biggest consumers of suicide, of depression, of just human beings as a whole in this world, not even in this country, in the United States. Everyone suffers from anxiety in some capacity. Now, some of you, your greatest anxiety may be, well, do I take my convertible Mustang or do I take my convertible Corvette to work today? Oh, poor you. So from the other side of it, for us normal human beings, our anxieties are, well, are we going to have enough money to pay rent this month? Or are we going to have enough money to get food this week? Or are we going to have enough money this week to keep the power on so we don't get shut off for the third time in 2 weeks? This type of anxiety can really destroy a person. It can really wreak havoc on your mental state, on your overall joy, on your overall well-being, because we don't like feeling anxious. None of us do. We see this all throughout history. We see that when people are made anxious, they make rash decisions. They make, most often than not, poor decisions because they are feeling anxious. And that can really cause a lot of problems. But the comforting part about this in Psalm 94:19 is that when we are anxious, God is still there. And this is how David writes this. He says, when anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy. This is the big reminder for us today, is that when we feel anxiety, when we feel that, basically that constricting feeling like you just can't break free, and then you finally do because of the anxiety, you're breaking free because of not only your ability to overcome it, because God is with you and He's helping you rip away think about almost that you're almost like duct taped together. He's ripping off the duct tape to free you so that way you can then be able to do what you're trying to do. And this is important because I believe truly that anxiety is sometimes more of a choice than an actual feeling. I think people choose to feel anxious about things. They put themselves in situations so they will purposely feel anxious. Now, you can come at me if you want to. I'm happy to provide you, with a way for you to contact me if you don't believe that that's true. But be that as it may, I do believe that a lot of people that say, I suffer from anxiety, it's self-inflicted, it's self-dealt anxiety. Well, how do I change that, Baxter? How do you know? You don't know my mental state. You don't know who I am. Well, of course I don't obviously know who you are. I don't know where you are in your mental, spiritual, emotional state. But my experience enough of being on this earth for 26 years has taught me that there's many people on this earth that purposely put themselves in anxious situations so that way they can feel consoled, or they can feel like they can get out of that responsibility because it's, I'm just too anxious. I just can't deal with that. I'm sorry. And just, it kind of almost gives them a free pass because they play the victim card too many times. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about people that do that? Do you do that? I know I'm guilty of it at times as well too. So don't think that this is me just trying to attack somebody. 99.99% of the time when I am quote unquote attacking a certain, demographic, I'm usually a part of that demographic as well too, but I'm kind of calling myself and the rest of the world out on it as well too. So don't think that this is Baxter trying to just come at you. How we respond to anxiety, how we respond in these situations, excuse me, is so important. So take a lesson from David today as you go about your day, and know that when anxiety is present in your life, when you are struggling to figure out if you're going to get through that hard time, turn to God and turn to the consoling love and joy from our Heavenly Father. You've been listening to the Verse of the Day podcast presented by Public House Media. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Verse of the Day. I hope you'll go and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast and Google Play Music as well. A new episode comes out every Monday through Friday. You won't want to miss it. More information about Verse of the Day can be found by heading over to thephmedia.com.